Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Mr. Saucedo's YouTube videos. Today we're going to be talking about how cell membranes are structured. So first thing you need to know, all cells contain a cell membrane. And cell membranes are simply barriers or dividers between the outside world and the outside environment and the inside of the cell. So in order for a cell to exist, there needs to be a cell membrane that is going to separate the stuff that is inside the cell from the stuff that is outside of the cell. Okay. And it is a flexible barrier. Okay. So it can kind of squish and move around. And that's true even of plant cells, even though plant cells have what we call a cell wall. And even bacteria have a cell wall. Okay. So here is a representation of what a cell membrane looks like. And so this is totally fluid. That means that all this yellow stuff that you see is supposed to represent a barrier. So it kind of looks like a fence, or it kind of looks like um, a little bit like a sheet maybe or something. But in reality, the entire cell is covered by this. And so you can picture this as being a three-dimensional sphere of just yellow little circle things like this. Okay. And there is fluid inside of the cell, which we call, the cytoplasm. And then you have the stuff on the outside of the cell. And so, what is this kind of yellowy looking stuff? So, the cell membrane itself is made out of a double layer of fats that are called phospholipids. And you can think of those again as being like your protective barrier. And so, phospholipids are really super cool. And if you put them in water, they will immediately repel the water and they will form a little bubble. And so, evolutionarily, we're pretty sure that if phospholipids developed or were made, or manufactured in some way, shape, or form in, early oceanic environments, that cells are kind of inevitable as a result of phospholipids kind of doing this automatically and forming a bubble where now you have liquid inside of the phospholipid barrier and liquid outside of the phospholipid barrier. Okay. So first things first, the membrane itself does contain molecules that regulate the passage of materials in and out of the cell. And so just as a reminder to ourselves, what organelle controls the passage of material in and out of the nucleus? Well, those were the nuclear pores, right? Well, the nuclear pores, okay, are kind of like, so when we're thinking of the nucleus, that also has a double layer, all right, of membrane surrounding the nucleus. Uh, it's kind of like that, but on a bigger scale, right? So we have nuclear pores in or on the surface of the nucleus that allow things in or out. We kind of have that in the cell membrane. And so it's a little bit more selective, though, in the sense that cells are selectively permeable, meaning only certain substances are allowed in, only certain substances are allowed out, and that's regulated. So it's not an always thing. At particular times, channels can be closed or opened to allow things in or to allow things out. Whereas nuclear pores, for the most part, are just kind of letting almost nothing in, hopefully, right? But letting RNA and stuff like that out. And so I always think of it like a bouncer. And so the outer layer is there for protection, but if it were just there, nothing could really happen. Like there could be no exchange really in or out of most of your cells, and so life wouldn't be exactly very much. Wouldn't be as possible. So much like a bouncer, they're going to allow certain things in or certain things out. And so these are the molecules that are embedded in the cell membranes. When I say embedded, the phospholipids in this picture are all these little gray circle things. And then we have these other colored materials, like you can see this yellow stuff that's labeled cholesterol, purple things that are labeled glycoprotein or integral protein or peripheral protein. And then you've got this kind of like green stuff that says carbohydrate or glycolipid. But again, the whole point of this is that each one of these things is going to be doing something for our cell membrane. The first one is cholesterol. So cholesterol strengthens the cell membrane. Having too much cholesterol is not necessarily a good thing because it'll harden the membrane and it won't be pliable or able to really like move around or squish as much. There is a perfect amount of cholesterol that your cell would like to have, but obviously you can have too much and have cells that are basically hardened, or you can have too little and have cells that are basically just squishy messes. Proteins, on the other hand, extend through the membrane and they form channels that certain molecules can pass through. So you can kind of think of these as having like little holes in them, like the nuclear pores, so that certain things can go in and certain things can go out. And that is regulated, though, for the most part. And then we have carbohydrates, and these are these little kind of green things. They're attached to proteins and act like identification tags. So your cells have a unique ID tag that lets your body know, oh, those are your cells. And so if it senses a cell that is not one of your cells, it'll know, hey, that's not supposed to be here. And it'll either attack it, or sometimes it will allow certain things that don't have ID tags in. I mean, obviously, there are certain types of bacteria that are really good for us that our body doesn't just destroy because it gets a benefit out of it. But you get kind of the idea. And so here's a good representation of a cell membrane, like a good visual of kind of how that works. So um, you can see you've got like liquid here. You've got like these little things floating, these little wiffle, I think they're wiffle balls or something, right? These would be like your proteins. But again, if I push down on this, on these tennis balls, all that's going to happen is they're going to bob up and down and kind of squish a little bit. That's it. All right.